Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into 4 spine-chilling stories that will make you think twice about hitchhiking, making friends with strangers, and even attending conference calls. These are the kinds of stories that stick with you long after you've heard them, the ones that make you question what you see and hear. Buckle up, because these tales are not for the faint of heart. Picture this. The year is 1978. A young mother finds herself in a bind. She needs to get herself and her 3 young children, one just a baby, across town. With limited options, she decides to hitchhike. Hitchhiking back then wasn't uncommon, but danger lurked around every corner. This young mother, my grandmother, hailed a ride from a seemingly ordinary man. He seemed harmless enough, but as the miles ticked by, unease began to worm its way into her gut. The driver started ignoring her directions, taking turns that led them further from their destination. He pulled off the main road, turning onto a long, desolate driveway leading to an old, dilapidated farmhouse. The driver, with a strange glint in his eye, told my grandmother he had to make a quick stop. As the car rolled to a stop in the overgrown yard, a tall, imposing figure emerged from the shadows of the farmhouse.
"What are you doing bringing a baby here? Get that thing out of here."
Even in his anger, this man had a line he wouldn't cross. The driver, flustered, stammered out an excuse. My grandmother, her heart pounding, clutched her children close. The baby let out a soft coo. My grandmother made a decision that would forever be etched in family lore. She looked the driver dead in the eyes and said,
"Take us home, now."
Her voice, though trembling, held a note of steel. The driver, pale and drawn, nodded silently and started the car. They drove back in silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. When they finally reached their destination, my grandmother practically leaped from the car, scooping up her children and ushering them inside. She locked the door behind her, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. She never spoke about the experience to her children until they were grown, but it serves as a chilling reminder that even in the most mundane moments, danger can be lurking just around the corner. Trust your instincts, be aware of your surroundings, and never underestimate a mother's love. This story takes place in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone else's business. It revolves around a young man named John, a seemingly ordinary guy who worked at the local sub shop. John was a bit of an enigma, quiet, kept to himself, but had a certain charm. He was new in town, and his co-workers, eager to make him feel welcome, invited him to hang out after work. One night, after closing up shop, John joined his co-workers for drinks at a local bar. He seemed different that night, more relaxed, more open. As the night wore on, John mentioned that he didn't have a place to stay. He'd just moved to town and was crashing on a friend's couch until he found his own place. His co-workers, fueled by alcohol and camaraderie, offered to let him stay at their place for a while. John accepted their offer, and for the next few days, he seemed to fit right in. He'd help with chores, cook meals, and even started to open up more about his past. But then, just as quickly as he had entered their lives, John vanished. One morning, his co-workers woke up to find his bed empty, his belongings gone. At first, they weren't too concerned. They figured he just stepped out for a bit. But as the hours turned into days and the days into weeks, worry began to form. They tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. They checked with his friends and family, but no one had heard from him. John had disappeared without a trace. Weeks later, a strange man walked into the sub shop. He was tall and lanky, with a nervous energy that set everyone on edge. He asked about John.
"Do you know where John is? Does he still work here?"
The employees, caught off guard, told him that John no longer worked there. The man pressed further, asking if they knew where he lived, if they had any way to contact him.
"Do you have any way to contact him? Are you sure you don't know anything?"
They told him they didn't know, but the man didn't seem convinced. He lingered for a moment, his eyes scanning the shop as if searching for something, before finally turning and leaving. Days later, the employees learned that John's grandmother had filed a missing persons report. The police were investigating, but they had little to go on. John's disappearance remained a mystery. The co-workers were left with unanswered questions, a haunting feeling that they had invited danger into their lives without even knowing it. They never heard from John again, and his fate remains unknown. Chapter 3. Brownie Betrayal. This story takes us back to the seemingly innocent days of childhood, a time when friendships are forged over shared secrets and playground games. Our narrator, let's call her Sarah, grew up with a girl named Emily. They were the same age, lived on the same street, and did everything together, or so it seemed. Looking back, Sarah remembers a strange feeling she couldn't quite place, a sense that Emily always kept her at arm's length.
There was a look in Emily's eyes sometimes, a flicker of something dark and calculating that sent chills down Sarah's spine.
Despite this unease, Sarah continued to befriend Emily. They were children after all, and Sarah, with her kind heart, couldn't fathom the darkness that lurked beneath Emily's seemingly innocent facade. One afternoon after school, Emily invited Sarah over to her house for a play date. Sarah, excited to spend time with her friend, eagerly accepted.
Emily's mom was baking brownies, the rich, chocolatey aroma filling the air. As Sarah watched Emily's mom stir the batter, Emily, with a mischievous glint in her eye, suggested they add something special to the mix.
Before Sarah could even ask what she meant, Emily had grabbed a handful of something from the counter and was sprinkling it into the batter. Sarah, her stomach twisting with unease, asked Emily what she was adding.
Emily, her voice a sugary sweet whisper, simply smiled and said, "It's a secret ingredient. It'll make the brownies even better, you'll see."
Sarah, her intuition screaming at her to run, hesitated. But the brownies did smell heavenly, and she didn't want to seem rude. She took a bite, savoring the rich, chocolatey flavor, and then everything went black.
When Sarah regained consciousness, she found herself lying in a hospital bed, her head pounding, her body feeling heavy and sluggish. She vaguely remembered the brownies, the strange taste that lingered on her tongue.
She asked the nurse where she was, what had happened. The nurse, her face a mask of concern, told Sarah that she had been found unconscious in Emily's living room. The doctors suspected she had been drugged. Sarah's blood ran cold. Emily had drugged her. But why?
The thought was so unthinkable, so monstrous that Sarah couldn't even process it. She asked the nurse about Emily, but the nurse just shook her head sadly. Emily, it turned out, had disappeared. The police were investigating, but they had no leads. It was like she had vanished into thin air.
Sarah was left to piece together the fragments of her memory, the haunting feeling that the girl she thought she knew had never truly existed. Emily was a ghost, a phantom who had drifted in and out of Sarah's life, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a chilling reminder that sometimes the people closest to us harbor the darkest secrets. Chapter 4. Haunted Conference Call in an Abandoned Asylum. This story takes us to the desolate outskirts of a small town in Australia, where an abandoned psychiatric ward stands as a chilling reminder of a troubled past. Our narrator, a tech specialist, was tasked with setting up video equipment for a conference in one of the ward's dilapidated rooms.
The air inside the ward was heavy with the weight of untold stories, the echoes of laughter and screams lingering in the shadows. As I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that I wasn't alone.
As he was running a final check, he noticed something strange. One of the video feeds, the one from a camera positioned in a darkened hallway, was flickering. He could have sworn he saw a figure dart past the edge of the frame, but when he rewound the footage, there was nothing there.
I tried to dismiss it as a trick of the light, but the feeling of unease persisted. I put on my headphones, adjusting the audio levels, when I heard it. A faint rustling sound, like someone was moving slowly down the hallway. I strained to listen, my heart pounding in my chest. The rustling grew louder, followed by a soft cough, a sound that sent chills down my spine.
It was then that the fire alarm went off, the shrill sound echoing through the empty ward. He jumped, his heart racing. He checked the control panel, but there was no indication of a fire. He silenced the alarm, attributing it to faulty wiring, but the hair on the back of his neck stood on end.
I tried to focus on my work, but the strange occurrences continued. the rustling, the coughing, the flickering shadows in the video feed. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any weirder, the fire alarm went off again. This time I didn't even bother checking the control panel. I grabbed my things and got out of there, my heart pounding in my chest.
He never returned to that abandoned asylum, but the experience left an indelible mark on his psyche. He couldn't explain what he had experienced, but he knew deep down that he had been witness to something unexplainable, something that defied logic and reason. It was a chilling reminder that some places are best left undisturbed, that some stories are better left untold. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these terrifying tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling stories. Each like and subscription helps us bring you more of the stories that make you question everything. And remember, sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry. Until next time, stay spooky.